Well, hello. I am Dr. Tony, and what's cool is that I've been wanting to trial YouTube Live. This is my first YouTube Live, so hey, welcome. Um, and an amazing professor that used to be my professor, Dr. Brent Satterley, asked me to just share a little bit about myself for class that he's running. So I figured this is a great opportunity to do both, to trial this YouTube live stream and also to do this video for an amazing professor and someone that I deeply appreciate in my life. So let's go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, let me know. So Dr. B asked me to share my experience with you, his students, about how social work and human sexuality have intersected in my life because I was a dual degree major and I studied both and I incorporate both into the work that I do now as well as just as who I am. They really are woven into the fabric of who I am, and that's why I chose to study those. And he wants me to also connect it with just the development of my subsequent career. So I'm going to take you a bit on a journey here because that's just kind of more my style. So I hope you can follow along with me and that this is something that is helpful to you. So I was honestly pretty excited to make this video for Dr. B because when he reached out to me, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, it's an opportunity for me to support an amazing professor who I truly greatly admire and appreciate, and also to connect with a group of up and coming social workers and sexologists who are part of a generation that is increasingly mired with stress and constantly viewing these intense political polarities that are happening and are really placing everyone under great pressure to do something. To do something. And this is kind of the atmosphere, this is the environment that you're being educated in and going to be going out into the career world in. And this pressure has the power to burn people out as well as the power to propel us as a helping profession forward toward even greater and more profound impact. And so obviously my hope is for us to do the latter and be propelled to move forward as a field, both human sexuality, education, and social work, to make an even greater impact than what we already have, even though we've made some absolutely amazing impact so far. And I have no doubt we're going to continue to do so. But right now, we're at a juncture in our kind of history of our nation to make a very meaningful impact with the work that we do. And I'm really, really passionate about what I do. And I imagine that you are too. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone into studying social work or human sexuality. So I'm going to run ahead with the assumption that you are passionate about being here. You are passionate about what you are studying. You are passionate about your mission. Even if you're still trying to figure out exactly what that looks like for you, that's normal. You're still passionate. And that's why you're here. That's what we need. We need passionate, purposeful professionals. So I'm passionate about helping ambitious impact makers to create balance in their lives so that they can enjoy their life more while also making this meaningful and deeply profound impact that we are here to make. And my goal then for you here today really is to do as Dr. B asked, of course, and share how social work and human sexuality have intersected for me and how they've influenced my career development, while also, though, laying this kind of framework, a gentle framework for you to utilize, to lean on, to apply, to just consider as you go out and you navigate in these overlapping fields of sexuality and social work with less overwhelm and more confidence. That is kind of in a nutshell what my goal is for our conversation today. So, as a quick background, I went to Widener for all of my degrees. All of them. My bachelor's in social work, my master's in social work, my master's in education, and my doctorate. I was highly ambitious, and I still am. I'm still an ambitious individual. Um, but I was initially heavily involved in clubs. I was helping run organizations, getting all A's. I was really pushing myself to excel in everything. I'd max out the amount of credits that I was permitted to take per semester just so that I could maximize what I was doing and taking in and giving back. I mean, just so I could excel in everything. And I was there an RA my second year, and I was basically up for like nearly all of the awards that they had to offer for RAs at that time because I was just constantly go, 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 do, hustle, 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 give, give, give. I immediately hopped into my advanced standing dual degree program right after my bachelor's without any break in between. And Dr. B knew that I was too ambitious for my own good, but I was not up for hearing that at the time. I was not. And you know what? We all have our journeys to experience, and this was part of mine. I was what many call a go getter or a high achiever. I don't like labels. I didn't then, I still don't. But sometimes labels are helpful for us to kind of get an idea of the category or experience that someone's talking about or the concept. So that's why I offer those. However, in addition to my achievements, here's what else happened. In my first year at Widener, I somehow found myself in this abusive relationship with someone who created a lot of drama for me and on campus. And I quickly wound up in Dr. B's office seeking advice. And there he was, supportive, but also very direct and clear with me. No beating around the bush with Dr. B. And that's how I knew at that moment, that's how I knew I could trust him. I knew that he was going to be honest and supportive and on my side, and he would tell me the truth. My second year at Widener, I was 302'd. I was hospitalized, mandatory. And I was told that I had to step down from being an RA just weeks before the end of the school year. I didn't have a choice. And no one knew I didn't have a choice. So people had thoughts and feelings about that. And by my junior year of undergrad, I became a single mom of my first child, whom Dr. B lovingly calls Kat, even still to this day. And I'm sharing this with you because some of you may resonate with this type of go-getter mentality or even some of the experiences or pressures that I've shared with you so far. And I know that you all deeply care because you're here and you're studying what you're studying in the fields that we are passionate about furthering and supporting people through, right? If you didn't care, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be in this field. But being ambitious and deeply caring, it's amazing. It really is amazing. I mean, it provides a lot of motivation and very unique perspectives and opportunities. It's great. But it also can lead you to put a lot of unnecessary and unhelpful pressure on your own shoulders. Pressure coming from the inside, pushing on the inside, permeating out around you. And it took me years to figure out what legitimate self-care embedded balance actually looks like as an individual, as a woman, as a minority, as a mother in the helping profession. It took me years to figure that out. And so now I help other people figure that out because I have found that so many leaders, social workers, educators, impact makers struggle with creating legitimate balance, struggle with saying they deserve to be refueled and care for themselves. So before anything else that I can offer you today, I find it really important. In fact, I find it essential that my first recommendation for showing up fully and impactfully in this dual field that you are exploring is to find your own type of balance and commit to it. Balance that will allow you to refuel and to recenter amidst whatever is happening in your life or at work so you can go out there and do the work that changes lives. Okay? So now, the intersection between human sexuality and social work. I really do like this question. I used to be asked a similar question all of the time when I was in the process of earning my PhD. Many people asked me why I chose to get a doctorate in human sexuality. There are people that ask me why I even wanted a doctorate. Why do you want a doctorate and 5 kids? Well, because I do. That's what I want, right? But also, like, why are you getting a doctorate in human sexuality? Like, what does that have to do with social work? I was asked that often. So for me, the answer was simple. I chose social work so that I could meaningfully engage and connect with people who were hurting internally. So they could then go forth and love themselves more and love their lives more and live more. And human sexuality to me is the person. It is the being. It is the makeup of whom I'm interacting with, of whom I'm supporting, and the interaction, the interconnectedness of that person with the rest of the world, right? And that is the fabric of social work as well. When you're looking at the person in the environment, you're looking at the person in context, and you're looking about how that person is interacting with their context, as well as how that context is influencing that person, vice versa, right? So our beingness as a people, as a species, these two, human sexuality and social work, for me, cannot be separated. I would have been remiss. This was my thought process. I would have been remiss not to further explore human sexuality as a therapist or social worker. Most people did not really understand that answer unless they themselves were in the program, and that's fine, that's okay. And we have to allow that to be okay if other people don't understand. Because honestly, if it hasn't happened to you, it probably is going to happen to you in some fashion, that someone's not fully going to understand the connection or commitment to those particular fields. Some people really just won't get it. And rather than forcing an understanding, what I would offer is just to open up a conversation if there's a willingness to have that conversation, and then allow it to be if there's not that willingness, rather than forcing a conversation that's just going to fall on closed ears. It's exerting energy that's not really going to go anywhere helpful. Had I allowed other people's opinions about what I was studying and what I was doing to matter, I never would have finished what I started. It just wouldn't have happened. So while this might seem easy for some of you and harder for others, I'm not just referring to this being a thing, this not getting it a thing at just home or at just church or at just in the community or wherever. This lack of understanding the connection between the two, or even the importance of either one, sometimes happens in the workforce too. Pretty commonly, in my experience, and it obviously depends on which agency you work for and things like that. But there are many professionals, other social workers and therapists included, that do not understand the connection between social work and sexuality, the interwoven connection between the two. And if you take it upon yourself to force an explanation, in my experience, it's not going to be very helpful, and it's going to feel really frustrating for you. They're not going to hear it, they're not going to understand it, and then they're probably not going to be very open to further conversation about it moving forward. So, for example, none of my bosses had, in the school settings especially, had an initial understanding of the connection between social work and human sexuality. They just didn't get it. And I never forced the conversation. But what I did do is I intentionally built a relationship with them so that they could see my skills. And then every time, without fail, no matter where I was working, a sexuality concern with a client or a student would arise. And immediately they would seek my support. I'm talking challenging cases. Like, they weren't sure how to manage them. They're like sexually active teens with STIs or possible teen pregnancies that they weren't sure what to do with as far as communication with a guardian or parent was concerned, questioning orientation while managing suicidal ideation, managing students, staff, and the atmosphere after a suicide of a young person, etc., etc. Amidst very challenging situations and often traumatic cases, I was able to help clients and families and colleagues and even my own bosses with relevant and quality support and guidance because of the relationship I had built with them. And because they had the awareness of what my expertise was, even though they didn't really understand it. I was given the gift, the opportunity to reach out and support them in the midst of and after these challenging experiences at a time when they were ready to hear and receive what they needed to hear and receive. And so as time pressed on, they really continued to come to me, sometimes randomly, with sexuality questions to expand their own knowledge base because now they had this foundational experience with me that made more sense to them, because things make more sense when you experience it versus just hearing it through words, right? That allowed me to really support them more fully, the staff, the students, the clients, as their social worker, as their therapist, as their colleague. And so what I would say for tip number one was to find your own type of balance. And for tip number two would be allow the gift of time. Allow the gift of time so you can really create and build relationships that give you the opportunity, that will provide you the gifts to share your knowledge, experience, expertise in a way that's heard more, felt more, experienced more, and therefore more beneficial to everyone that you're interacting with. As you build relationships and people experience the skill and knowledge that you bring to the table with ease, they're going to be more open to receive even more of what you have to offer. Sexuality as a topic is still taboo to discuss in many places, especially when you are the only social worker or one of a few social workers or just the only one with human sexuality background. The power of sharing your knowledge and experience first begins with building these trusting relationships. And that's the experience that I have had. And those are the experiences that have been the most profound for me and those that I've interacted with. So sometimes it's easy to want to just state the importance of everyone being aware of everything that you know so that they know they should know it and then you can just tell them it, and then like that pressure is intense for you, for them, and typically it's not helpful. So an attempt to convince or prove to others that they need to care about sexuality in order to let you be the social worker that you want to be or the therapist that you want to be, or in order to better benefit clients, the more forceful approach often winds up being counterproductive, even if with very good intent, right? And then your knowledge and your perspective and your experience and your skill, it doesn't get shared or heard as widely as it could. And ultimately, it's one of our goals as social workers, as educators, as sexologists, to be able to enhance awareness about taboo and sensitive topics that need to be addressed, right? Like orientation, sexual identity, sex and teens, abuse, suicide among children and teens, cultural differences, etc. We want to be able to bridge those connections. And in order to do that, we need to have the basis of a relationship built and that professional connection, professional respect, and open communication in order to share that. So, to review, tip number one, really to find your own type of balance and honor it, commit to it. And then tip number two is that it doesn't all need to happen right now. Allow the gift of time and build those relationships. So, I hope that these two tips were really helpful to you. Applying these two tips for me, it really led me to a place in my personal and professional life that allows me to live balance as a mom, as a therapist, as a coach, and it also allows me to make a deep impact that really matters to me and those that I'm serving. I started out my career providing in-home therapy for teens on probation or involved with children and youth, and I also spent years doing mobile therapy for children, behavior specialist work, school social work, and I spent time as a primary therapist in an intensive residential treatment center for youth as well. And now I have my own private practice, which I do not accept insurance for, but I do offer limited sliding scale slots for. And I work with amazing folks who struggle with perfectionism, anxiety, depression, chronic stress, burnout, and oftentimes underlying trauma. And I run my own coaching business as well, which is a separate entity. And I help the ambitious leaders that are seeking balance to really experience more joy and create that balance for them, balance that works for them without the constant sacrifice and hustle. So, what I'd love to leave you with is just a little bit more of a personal note, but still very relevant note. And it's these two mottos. There are two mottos that I live by. I also teach both of these mottos in my private practice and with my coaching clients as applicable, when appropriate. And this is what they are, and I want to share them with you. The first one is always reserve your right to grow. And the second is the joy is in the journey. You see, our educational paths are really created by completing tasks that are assigned and therefore achieving what you've set forth as you complete each task. This often means that the measurement of success, for example, in this class, will be measured based on the effort that you put forth in each task and the skill with which you complete them, and obviously doing it in a time appropriate manner. But that's not how you find enjoyment and balance in our field. Okay? Because the tasks and the to-do lists are always going to grow. Sometimes you're going to accomplish what you set forth out to do to support a client or a cause. And sometimes they're not going to go the way that we hope, or it's not going to fully get accomplished for whatever reason. And so you're not going to get a grade for anything that you're doing. The measurement for success out in the field, especially in a field like ours, where the work is never truly done, the true measurement of success is going to bring you peace after a hard session with a client, or tranquility after a difficult family crisis intervention, or calm after a liability scare. The true measurement of your success is internally gauged. And it rests in you knowing and deeply believing that every day you are trying your best. You won't do or be perfect no matter what, but you're willing to grow and learn every single day. And you're willing to enjoy that growth journey along your way to whatever the next goal may be. Because as a social worker, as a sexologist, your opportunities to make a difference in this world are truly endless. Think outside the box. As long as you're open to reserve your right to grow and embrace the joy in the journey rather than focus on like a particular goal or a particular accomplishment to achieve happiness, then you'll be able to look outside of the box and offer novel ideas and services and supports, regardless of where you work or who you work with, that are going to uniquely be your own offering. And that to me is why we do what we do. We do what we do to make an impact that matters using our gifts, our skills, our knowledge, our interactions, our perspective that no one else quite has or can quite do in the way that we can to better this world. That's why we do what we do. And so that's my greatest wish for you. And hopefully that is felt and experienced and makes sense for you. And if you, of course, ever have a question along the way, we are all intended to support one another. And Dr. B is pretty freaking amazing. But if you also would like to add another resource to your list, I'm happy to do that for you as well. So thank you so much for listening to me. Best of luck.